So it's not like when I used to lecture on psychosis, it was like this group of people. Now I spend my life talking about trauma, which is because everybody I met with psychosis had trauma and became interested in it. Now I realise it's pretty much most people you meet. Yeah. So what it taught me, I guess, was I've experienced my own trauma as well. So I've delivered trauma therapies for nearly 30 years, but I've also had them myself. You know, I've experienced the benefit of them myself. So I guess what it teaches me as a man is you have to kind of acknowledge your own, what's the word I'm looking for? Your own mental injuries and wounds. You have to recognise them, you have to face them, you have to deal with them. They don't go away, you know, and they affect your behaviour, they affect your relationships, they affect how you parent, they affect how you manage people at work, how you conduct yourself in your life. So it affects pretty much everything. So I guess what I've learned is you got to work on yourself, and that stuff shapes who we are.
So today on the pod, I'm joined by Dr. Warren Larkin. Warren,
hello.
Good to see you, mate.
Thank you for asking me, Craig.
Warren is a clinical psychologist with vast experience in a number of different domains. He worked for a very long time in the NHS and worked with a lot of mental health problems, severe cases, and he's also worked in professional sports, and he's also working and doing some great work within education. Warren, tell the audience a little bit about who you are, mate.
Thank you, Craig. Well, first of all, it's nice to be back in Wigan, where I grew up. I kind of grew up in Wigan. I'll give you the short potted history, right? So I grew up in Wigan in Ince, and I went to Rosebridge High School. I left with bugger all qualifications, and had to do some catching up later on, which I obviously did. And eventually I qualified as a clinical psychologist. It kind of took about 9 years from first degree, 3 years of various jobs in the NHS to get experience, and then 3 years doctorate. And then I did 25 years in the NHS after that, working mostly with people with severe mental health problems, what I guess you would refer to as psychosis or bipolar mood problems, trying to help young people and their families, trying to catch it as early as possible. So the idea was early intervention. So I did that for a long time, led one of the centres of excellence for the Department of Health, demonstrating what was possible within that field. So that was quite an interesting period. And then I was seconded to Department of Health for a couple of years to lead on adverse childhood experiences, and then the last 5 years of my career were clinical director for the network of children and family services in Lancashire. So things like health visiting, school nursing, CAMS, inpatient CAMS community, children's therapies like physiotherapy, speech language therapy, and first episode psychosis and sexual health. And then after that, which was good because I was a clinician, a specialist clinician, an academic for years, and then I took this job and like had a massive zoom out of like, wow, okay, so this is really about public health, like it's really about prevention. So it kind of, you know, I'd spent 20 odd years specialising, you know, focusing in on more, trying to develop more and better therapies for people with severe mental health problems. And then I took this job as clinical director for the network, and I was like, wow, okay, suddenly I see that the solution is not necessarily more and better therapies, carrying on picking up the pieces, right? We need that, but the solution is actually giving people the help they need sooner, but also, if we step even further back, prevention, you know. So a lot of mental health issues can be prevented by basically us helping families raise their kids in the best way possible, avoiding kids and children and young people getting traumatized. You know, childhood trauma is a big part of what I've studied and what I've worked in over the years. And I continue. So I left in 2017, left the NHS 2017, set up my own business, inventively titled Warren Larkin Associates. You know, so I have a bunch of people that help me who are all kind of experts in their own field, and I manage the business and, you know, kind of the face of it really, and do the public speaking and relationship building and all of that, and these kinds of things. And then my colleagues deliver the work, you know, the training, the support, consultancy. And that's what I've been doing that now for the last 8 years. And we find ourselves here.
Beautiful. Thanks for that synopsis, mate.
Yes.
You've got vast experience, and Sounds like you've been around a lot of complex trauma and a lot of mental health problems, and how's that helped you? How's that helped you to grow as a man? Being around all that.
Well, I guess the first thing to say is trauma. Throughout the life, bad things that happen to people, whether it be violence, abuse, neglect, loss, it's pretty common. So the World Health Organization did a study in 2015 in 26 countries, and they surveyed 29,000 people, and what they found was 70% of people on average around the world have experienced at least one potentially traumatic life event that would match the diagnostic categories. 30% of people have had 4 or more traumatic life events when you looked at that study. So it's pretty common. And when you look at childhood trauma, what are often referred to as adverse childhood experiences, childhood trauma is incredibly common as well. So there was an English survey of the population in 2014, and they found that half the population reports at least one childhood trauma growing up, whether that be neglect, abuse, household dysfunction of some sort, loss, those kind of things, parent going to prison, parent with a serious mental health problem, parents with a drug problem. These things are common. So half the population said they've had one of those things happen growing up, and 10% of people, 1 in 10 people, have had 4 or more of those things growing up. So it's everywhere. It's everybody, right? So it's not like when I used to lecture on psychosis, it was like this group of people. Now I spend my life talking about trauma, which is because everybody I met with psychosis had trauma and became interested in it. Now I realise it's pretty much most people you meet. Yeah. So what it taught me, I guess, was I've experienced my own trauma as well. So I've delivered trauma therapies for nearly 30 years, but I've also had them myself. I've experienced the benefit of them myself. So I guess what it teaches me as a man is you have to kind of acknowledge your own, what's the word I'm looking for? Your own mental injuries and wounds. You have to recognise them, you have to face them, you have to deal with them. They don't go away, and they affect your behaviour, they affect your relationships, they affect how you parent, they affect how you manage people at work, how you conduct yourself in your life. So it affects pretty much everything. So I guess what I've learned is you got to work on yourself, and that stuff shapes who we are.
Of course. When did you first start working on yourself? Can you remember that?
Oh God, how long have you got? I definitely think that, people. I think people seem surprised, like, oh, you're a clinical psychologist, you're doing therapy. Like, well, I probably started doing self-development work and therapy. So I've done therapy in chapters. One time I did some CBT, another time I did some psychodynamic psychotherapy, another time I had some counselling, another time, most recently, been doing internal family systems therapy. Yeah. But God, since I was kind of like probably 20, was I think when I first did some sort of therapy. Not in a kind of like, oh, I think it'd be nice to do some therapy, more in a kind of like, I don't know what's going on with me, I need to get to the bottom of why I feel the way I feel.
Yeah. And was you already certified as a psychologist, or did that spur you on
I think
become a psychologist?
Yeah, I think that was a part of it. So I started, first time I did therapy, I was working at Burnley Hospital actually as an assistant. So I was an assistant psychologist. I got my first degree. Then I did 3 years of different jobs in the NHS to get experience before I applied for a doctorate. So it's in that period I worked at Burnley Hospital, and I think doing this job, it's very hard to ignore your own stuff. Like you're encountering people's problems every day. They're talking to you about stuff, and sometimes you go, I feel you on that because I've been there myself. So it's very hard to ignore unresolved issues as a psychologist. You can't hide it away in a dark corner. You've got to like deal with it, because on a regular basis you're going to meet somebody who says something that kind of strikes a chord with what you're dealing with. So for me, it's been pretty much a lifelong journey, really, of kind of self-improvement. And you'll do a chapter, a chunk of work. At one point I was really interested in meditation and all of that, and then another point I'll be, I don't know, obsessed with walking up hills, and I've done martial arts my whole life, haven't I? So that's been another source of growth and resilience, another journey, if you like. But it's been, for me, it's pretty much chapters. Do a chapter, self-development work, leave it alone for a bit, see how it develops, do another chapter, have a break. So I sort of see it as, you don't just do therapy like once, you kind of work in progress, and you just do it as a kind of series of chapters of work, you know. That's and it might take different forms to different people, you know. For some people it might be investing in their physical health through exercise. For somebody else it might be doing psychological therapy. For somebody else it might be expressing themselves through art or music. Whatever works for you is what I say. But I just think we have a responsibility to sort of work on ourselves, you know.
Let's talk about I remember me and you having a conversation the other week about the manifestation of unintegrated trauma, or the manifestation of repressed emotion, the manifestation in later life of burying something, disassociation, all that. Because we grew up in a town where you're not supposed to cry, you can't get angry or you get slapped, you can't say you're scared. So we naturally repress those things, don't we? And we put on a persona that leads to at least a feeling of being safe to an extent and being loved, and we bury everything else. And we were talking about some of the statistics around later in life and chronic disease and depression that relates all the way back to adverse childhood trauma. Can you speak a bit more about that in terms of what we know now about the dangers of not doing the work, and the dangers of feeling too afraid to do the work?
Well, that's it, and it has to go somewhere. You can't. I always used to, with my patients in the NHS, I always used to use the analogy of a pressure cooker. But some young people watching might have to look that up, you know. The pressure cooker was this old-fashioned device that we cooked food in, that had a steam in it with a valve. But the idea being, if you don't let the steam out a little bit by bit, let the steam escape, it explodes, doesn't it? So it's like, you know, there's a famous book on trauma by Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score. There's another great book by Gabor Mate called The Body Says No. And what they're getting at is, it goes, this trauma, this unresolved, repressed emotion goes somewhere. We store it in our body. It doesn't go away. We might think it goes away, but we can only bury it for so long. It does take its toll. And what we know now is there's a lot of evidence that psychological trauma, unresolved pain, unresolved emotion that you've repressed, it has an effect on your physical health. So most people recognise, those kinds of deep dark secrets, those kind of pain that you push down, they have effect on your mental health. Most people get that intuitively. But actually there's a lot of evidence now that all those things that you suppress, all those past traumas, those past hurts and injuries and wounds to your emotions, they affect your physical health. And we know the mechanisms for that now. There's a whole branch of science called psychoneuroimmunology, which looks at the relationship between your stress response, your mental state, and your physical body. Because when you have that stress response, that fight or flight response, there's three components to it: the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal glands. Together, they're the stress apparatus, and they mobilise all your body's resources. So if you had a really stressful reaction to something, hypothalamus is involved, your autonomic nervous system's involved, the sympathetic nervous system. Your body releases stress hormones, your liver turns glycogen into glucose in case you need to fight or run away. Your body also releases inflammatory cells. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, but a couple of crucial things. One, that blood sugar change, and secondly, the inflammatory cell being released. If both of those things are constantly being triggered, but they're not being used for anything to fuel the muscles to fight or run away, or to fight off an injury, or help an injury heal, or fight off an infection with the inflammatory cells, where do they go? Where does all that inflammation go? What happens to your blood sugar regulation if you keep having that spike of blood sugar? Well, we know that people with more childhood trauma have higher rates of type 2 diabetes by about 3 times. People with 4 different kinds of childhood trauma growing up compared to people who've got none, 3 times more likely to have heart disease, 3 times more likely to have respiratory disease, also 3 times more likely to be a frequent attender at the GP. Because there's a physical wear and tear, there's a premature wear and tear on your nervous system, on your endocrine system, on your reproductive system. it takes its toll. And
Yeah.
you know, one phrase that I like is the guy who wrote a really famous book on stress, Hans Selye, 1956, I think it was, the stress of life. He said, every time an organism experiences a stress response, it grows a little older. Which is a bit depressing, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I think the message comes across, doesn't it? So yeah, so there, and there's a lot of research, you know, in that book by Gabor Mate. There's a lot of research on the physical harms associated with stress, and in particular repressed emotions. So people who repress anger.
Mm-hmm.
He demonstrates in his book there's a very strong link between autoimmune diseases and that repression of anger,
and cardiovascular disease too, right?
absolutely, and cancer, and also he makes links between motor neuron disease. He
Wow.
posts a really interesting case example using Stephen Hawkins,
Yeah.
looking at his emotional style. So yeah, it's a fascinating realm. You know, it has a real toll on our physical health if we don't address it.
What about the repression of grief? Any stats out there on that? I know you read sometimes. You read in the kind of Chinese medicine literature, lung cancer and lung problems and stuff like that. But anything from your perspective that you're aware of?
I'm not specifically clued up on the details of the
Yeah.
research on grief and the manifestation of illness, but I guess it's part of that stress response, isn't it? And what I know about grief and working with a lot of people with grief over the years is, again, it's a process. It doesn't go away unless you deal with it. You have to grieve.
Yeah.
You have to experience bereavement and loss.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in our society, I think often what happens is people do the admin around the funeral and the wake and all those other things, deal with the estate, and then they box it off.
Yeah.
And actually, they just rush back into their busy lives, and they've not had time to address it. And I know that personally, because when my dad died, we got through all that. You know, I did the eulogy and everything. It was really, really challenging. But then I was back to my busy life, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd processed it. But interestingly, I went on holiday, and about 4 months later, I went on holiday, and I was just lying by the pool. It's a nice hotel in the sun in Greece, and I looked down at my hand, and I've got this ring on, which was my dad's, and he wore it every day of his life. You know, my mum gave it to him when he was 18, and I saw that, and I just felt overcome with emotion, and it's like, where's this come from? I thought I'd dealt with this. You know, I thought I'd really dealt with this, but it just overwhelmed me. But I realised it was the first time I'd not been busy. My mind was racing with
You give
work
yourself
and
space
life.
to feel.
It just emerged because I had space. Yeah, and I spent the afternoon feeling, you know, very emotional and upset about it, and just processing it, really, crying, you know.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It took me by surprise, but it just goes to show you, doesn't it, that unless you make space for it, it doesn't get resolved.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things about, you know, when I was a kid, kids didn't go to funerals. You know, we're trying to protect them. We'll keep them. We don't want them seeing that stuff. But you know, when you think about it now, I kind of think, you know, if ever's been bereavements in our family, I'll say to my kids are a bit older now, but I'd say to the girls, you know, what do you want to do about this? Do you want to go? Do you want to see this? Do you want to be a part of this ritual, or do you find it too difficult? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
But I think we're quite removed from death, aren't we, in our society?
It's a pity, isn't it?
It's kind of sanitised, you know, whereas in some cultures, the family have the body at home, they wash it, they care for it, they dress it, they have it in the house. It's a really tangible and visceral thing, in it, but it's a bit stage managed, in it, you know.
Just going back for a minute, really interesting here you talk about fight or flight, and my interpretation of some of what you were saying is that there seems to be a relationship between chronic fight or flight, which unfortunately has become the norm in today's society.
Chronic stress,
chronic fight or flight and chronic inflammation. So thanks for making that correlation. It really starts to make sense to me. So in some of the people that I work with, especially men, they come to me and I can see the signs that they're agitated. There's a learnt chronic fight or flight that's actually become the norm for them. And sometimes in the long term it's beautiful, but in the short term, sometimes if I guide them into safe and social, if I guide them into, you know, a regulated state, it's so alien to them. And to feel that peace and that groundedness, it's sometimes a shock to them. And then they walk away. I don't like meditation. It doesn't work for me, for example.
Yeah.
Because they're not used to it now. Over the long period, it becomes more of the norm, and they start to inhabit that and start to kind of return more to a safe feeling of home. But my question to you is, how would you guide someone into kind of into a greater sense of groundedness and safety?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, the first thing I would say is, before I come back to how I would do it, is I think a lot of people are in a perpetual kind of state of busyness and struggle with nothingness, right? Struggle with space.
Yeah.
Struggle with not being busy, occupied, distracted. Because when you're not distracted, when you're kind of present and when you like inhabit your own space, all your thoughts are there, aren't they?
Of course.
And
associated feelings.
Exactly. So you can't get away from yourself. So some people spend their whole life being distracted, being busy, being driven. Workaholic is a typical acceptable form of avoidance for men, innit?
Of course.
You know, if you're a workaholic, like, people go, oh yeah, he's busy, he runs his own business, whatever, he's successful.
He's a hard worker.
Yeah, he works really hard. Yeah, it's seen as a positive
attribute.
Yeah, but actually it's not. It's a kind of addiction, and it keeps us away from our families and our feelings and our friends and our, you know, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And I used to, when I worked in the NHS, I worked in older adults for a period when I was, for about a year when I was training, and I saw endless blokes who were coming in for cognitive assessments. They might have had a stroke or something.
Yeah.
And what I'd spend most of my time doing was grief and trauma therapy, because, like I said, they'd worked 30 years in the cops, or, you know, 25 years in sport, or, you know, 30 years down the pit. Suddenly they stop after all that busy, and it's like all the stuff they haven't dealt with, all the trauma, all the grief, all the loss, all the painful stuff in life just spills out. So I think that's a perpetual problem in our society, is that we keep ourselves so busy, we're constantly doing, not being, and as a result, when we can't be busy anymore, like say you retire or you get sick and old and you can't keep yourself, you know, that's when it comes out. So I think, you know, one way or other, this thing you're talking about of self-regulation, this idea of self-soothing, comforting your nervous system, down-regulate your nervous system, it's a skill you have to learn. And ideally you learn it in childhood through a caregiver. So most people have heard of this process of attachment, where a child attaches to a caregiver, and it's really about survival, because babies can't really do a lot for themselves, so they get this adult to care for them and help them survive. And part of that process, they also experience attunement. So a kind of attentive caregiver, when a baby cries or gets upset, will respond to that baby reliably, pick it up and comfort it and soothe it, and eventually the baby will stop crying and they'll fall asleep. If that happens enough times, that co-regulation between a child and a carer, they get hardwired in their brain this ability to calm their nervous system. Now, if you've not had a consistent caregiver, or a caregiver that's been tuned into your needs in that way, you'll grow up with probably not very good skills at calming yourself. So that's one problem. The other thing is, if you've had lots of trauma in your life and your nervous system's on red alert a lot of the time, you're going to be one of those people that easily goes into fight or flight, is very sensitive to that, doesn't take much, and as a result, again, you're going to be one of those people that struggles to stay in that sort of calm, balanced place. So the upshot of that is, however it happened, or however we got here, you have to learn it. And there's loads of ways of learning it, and some of us are really good at it and some of us are not. I struggle a bit with that, like, you know, staying calm and relaxed and peaceful. I'm one of these people who's always like got 1,000 thoughts going on, busy, struggle to relax, but you got to learn it. So mindfulness meditation is a really good way of having a different relationship with those busy thoughts, and getting into your body. Breathing techniques, yoga. I used to make fun of yoga.
So did
I just dismissed it
until it changed my life.
Yes, and then I met I did a yoga lesson with Scott, who's I don't know, I'm Scott Lowe. He's a yoga teacher, and I did this yoga lesson, and the breathing that went with it and everything. I was like, my God, that's the most relaxed I've been in about 10 years. I had no idea I could feel this relaxed. So that really changed my attitude. And then I also do karate, so I've done martial arts since I was like 15, 16. So I still do that. And
Which is like a moving meditation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they call it moving Zen, you know, because you have to be totally, you know, focused on what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you forget about everything else. And it's about aligning your mind and your body for that period of time that you're doing whatever you're doing. So that's, so in terms of helping other people, I think there's a couple of things. One is you can teach people breathing techniques, and that regulates your nervous system. It like hacks your nervous system to down-regulate. Mindfulness is another good way. If people are kind of triggered from a kind of post-traumatic flashback kind of way, we can teach people grounding techniques, you know, where they can notice things in the environment, then notice sounds, and notice sensations. Sometimes people bring smells, you know, like essential oils or something that they like smell of, and that stimulation of your olfactory system is incredibly powerful and the quickest way of impacting your brain. So sometimes people use smells and essential oils and aromatherapy and all that. So there's lots of different ways people can learn to down-regulate the nervous system, but the message is you have to learn it somehow. Whatever works for you. What would your preferred method be?
Nature is the obvious one.
Absolutely.
There's a recalibration that happens when I'm in nature without trying. All types of breath work, exercise, touch, stroking the dog, stroking the cat.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, music, looking at something beautiful, letting it in through my eyes. Sway movements,
rhythmic,
circular movements. I use a 5-stage centering practice that I learned at a school in called the Strozzi Institute. It's dead simple, but really, really effective, where we bring our attention to the ground and inhabit what it feels like to be grounded. We bring our attention up through the vertical in the space above our head. We connect with the strength in our backbone. We connect with a soft face and a soft heart and a soft belly, and then we focus on a vertical breath. That's like a key practice for me. But I mean, anything that comes through our senses can either dysregulate us or regulate us. So I'm always saying to my clients, be really, really, really careful what you allow into your senses. You know, it's really, really careful. So I'm meticulous with what I allow in, you know. It's
like a hygiene process, isn't it? Like it goes into your brain. It's like young people seeing social media and seeing awful things they don't want to see. That is a real problem. And I remember when the Ukraine war first started, and it was like Russia was threatening nuclear war and all this. I was delivering training every week in Lancashire for the Violence Reduction Network. I'd have a room full of 30 people every week, different people. They were really, really stressed about this whole thing. Everyone was really stressed about this whole thing. So, and I remember saying, I've just stopped reading the news, right? There's nothing good in there. My dad used to say, there's no good in news. There's nothing positive in the news. If you're looking for good, positive, you know, lifting stories, you're not going to find it there.
No.
So I stopped at that point consuming, you know, popular news, just because it was all so sensationalist and Armageddon. And I just thought, I don't need that, right? I can't control it. I don't want it in my brain, you know. I want to just focus on what I can control, which is the immediate things in my life. So I'm totally with you on that. And nature, 100%.
Even the word sometimes, though, Warren, is not helpful for some people. You know, you mentioned the word self-regulation. It's like, what are you talking about? And meditation is totally misunderstood. Sometimes I just like to use the term redirecting attention. You know, because our attention is either lost in a story or it's lost in something outside of ourselves. We've disassociated, and for me, our attention is the greatest commodity we have as a human being. So for me, it's redirecting that attention and reattuning to where we place our attention. That's the key for me.
Absolutely. And sometimes that can be in our physical body, you know, like when I do karate and I do a kata, you know, I do a particular movement, and you feel like when I do this, I feel, you know, you think it's like the karate wax on, wax off, paint the fence, you know.
My AI is called Mr. Miyagi.
Right. But these are all, for me, these are all applications, you know. These are all movements that I've practiced over the years, and when I do it, I feel different. You know, when I breathe, I feel different. Everything connects up. It all makes sense again. And then on the other hand, a different way of feeling. What I would say is, it's kind of, we could call it stress management, whatever you want to call it, but de-stressing, feeling calm, feeling at peace, feeling at ease. Nature does that for me. There's a lot of evidence that 20 minutes, even in a green space, you know, just being around trees and grass. And
100%.
20 minutes can lower your blood pressure, lower your stress hormones. All you got to do is be around some greenery, you know. So if you walk the dog and normally you go, I don't know, down to the shops and back, maybe cut through the park and see a bit of, you know, a bit of wildlife, a bit of greenery.
Yeah, and if someone's really dysregulated, it'll be tough in the beginning if they're dysregulated, but I really believe if they camped in nature, slept on the grass for 5 days, it would go a long way to re-regulating the nervous system.
You know what? Absolutely. And I listened to a podcast not long ago where army veterans who'd been traumatized in various theatres of war went with this outdoor instructor guy, and they call it, I think it's called the 3-day effect. Yeah. And the first day they found it really challenging. Second day they were really struggling. Yeah. Third day something started to change, and it was like their nervous system suddenly tuned into the nature and relaxed. Yeah. And then they were able to start doing some of the work on the unresolved trauma because they felt at peace. Yeah. For the first time, it was really powerful.
Imagine if we took kids on those trips before they had these events. Yeah. You know, it became normal in primary school to take kids away for 5 days, 3 times a year, and sleep rough outside. You know,
it's wonderful. I don't know if I could do it now though.
Yeah,
sleeping 5 days on the floor, I think I'd be like creaking.
I could, not in Ebden Bridge.
Yeah.
But I could if it was warm weather.
Probably need a physio session after.
Yeah. Let's talk about feelings.
Okay.
Feelings,
right?
Oh no. Because
I'm trying to think of an excuse now. No.
We hear it all the time, don't we, mate? Especially in the work you do and the work I do. And I speak to a lot of clients, and the wives are onto them. You can't feel me. You know, you need to feel. Yeah. And I know on my journey, you know, I was raised to live in my head, and I was raised to never stop, and I was raised to never feel. Do. And it was only when I went on a 1-month yoga retreat 15 years ago, and I had to be still because the practice of yoga forces you to be still, that I realized when I was able to still, because it took me 2 weeks because I was itchy and I was going out for a piss and I couldn't be still, but when I could access that stillness, my body came alive and I felt feelings that I'd never felt before. Some of them were beautiful, blissful, expansive, joyful, heart opening. And some of them weren't. Some of them were dark, and memories came up around rage, and why am I raging towards my brother, and why am I not connected to my father, and sadness and grief. So there's a polarity of that experience, but it was the doorway for me to go on a journey of getting into my body, or getting into this, which is the home of feelings. But how do we sell that to men? Because for me, we have the practices, we know what practices to do, and we can take guys, if they have the balls to come to us, on a journey to reclaim what's in the body and really connect with life. But what's our messaging around that? How can we...
It's tough, isn't it?
Because we make that accessible to men so they realise that it might be scary, but I've just got to learn how to feel. Otherwise, I'll be chasing the next thing. I'll be living in logic, and I'll never really experience life, and I'll never experience deep relationships because I'm trying to lead relationships with logic, not with feeling.
I think it's how we're kind of socialised in our society, isn't it? I don't know whether it's a generational thing, whether young people nowadays are more literate, more emotionally literate. I get a sense that they are. They've certainly got more information at their fingertips, good and bad,
of course,
you know. And I think probably parents are more savvy at identifying emotional problems for young people as well. So I think maybe we're a bit more emotionally literate as a society nowadays. But when we grew up in the 70s, you know, and 80s, it was men didn't really talk about the feelings, did they?
Yeah.
Boys
No.
don't cry, you know, men
Yeah.
don't talk about the feelings.
Feelings were what women did, right?
Right. So it was very much, I think it's been very much kind of wrapped up with masculinity and whether it's what masculinity is really, you know. I mean, in my head, it's about feeling everything and being integrated and not hiding from anything.
Me too.
That is also requires you to be vulnerable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It requires you to say, there are parts of me that are not working, there are parts of my life that are not working, there are things in my life, experiences that are unresolved, which are then affecting me in X, Y and Z ways.
Yeah.
And I also think it's about being present in your relationships and, like, you know, the other thing is like listening to your loved ones, you know, listening to your family, if you've got a partner, listening to your partner about how they experience you, listening to your children if you've got children, listening to your friends, but being open to feedback, because most of us are far from perfect,
Of course.
and most of the consequences of those unresolved experiences and feelings are felt by the people around us. So if someone says to you, you know, there's a particular trait or a particular behaviour or a particular thing you're avoiding and it's causing them a problem, don't just be defensive about it. Listen, you know, they're seeing something in you that they're giving you a gift really, because they're telling you what it is you need to have a look at, because it might be coming between you and your wife or husband or partner. It might be coming between you and your kids. It might be that your avoidance and your workaholism is meaning you've got no time for your wife and your kids. And I think like people of our generation, I think, like you said, you know, people work hard, you're a grafter, you know, he's got a good work ethic, he works all the hours God sends. They were all like positive associations when I was growing up. But actually now, the people that I admire, the people that said, you know what, I don't work in August because I spend it with my kids, or I don't work on a Friday because I look after my elderly grandparents, or me, you know, look after my parents who are getting on a bit. It's those people who've got that balance. You know, that's what I really admire, is people who focus on the right things and don't allow distractions or pursuits or behaviours to get in the way of them fully experiencing who they are and where they've been and the story of their life. But ultimately, I think people are scared of going inside. I think that's one of the scariest places.
Yeah, for sure. It's scary, isn't it?
Unless you've got someone who can guide you, you know, a coach, a therapist, a mentor, a role model. You know, I think one of the most important things, I think, for young people is to have a role model, a mentor figure, a guide, an adult figure that they respect. It might be the parents, it might not be, but certainly having an adult in their life that they can rely on, and can open up to and be honest with.
I think for me, we're at a pivotal time in history where, I mean, even women are changing. You know, that the women that I come across, like wives of my clients, for example, they don't validate financial provision anymore. They don't validate workaholism before, like maybe they used to. They validate a man who's present, and who can stay grounded in rapport, who can stay grounded in conflict, who doesn't check out, who doesn't go on the attack. For me, that is the domain where we can be validated. But it's that relational space. It requires an embodied journey to feel. You know, the more we can feel on the inside, the more we can feel on the outside. The more kinder we are on the inside, the more kinder we are to other people. And there's that real mirror happening for me, where in my life, the kinder I am and the more I become aware of the narrative I'm talking to myself with, and it's kind and it's soft and it's gentle and it's appreciative, the more I stop that with other people. You know, if I'm unkind to myself, I'll be unkind to other people. If I try and punch my critical part in the face, I'll get distracted when other people are critical.
Yeah.
If I don't own my sadness, it'll trigger me when
Yeah.
someone is sad.
Yeah.
If I don't have a deeper relationship with my anger, I'll get triggered when
Yeah.
someone is angry. So for
Yeah.
me, it really is an inside job.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what you said about the wives and stuff, I think I look back and I think I'm a different person now than I was when I first met my wife, and I think that she's helped me be a better man because she doesn't let me get away with bullshit,
Yeah.
basically. And as a result, I'm definitely work in progress. I'm still working on being the best husband and best dad that I can be,
Yeah.
and I'm far from perfect, you know. But what I can say is, she's definitely held me to account and made me a more responsible
Yeah.
and a better man, for sure. And I think that's the gift that our partners give us, you know.
Well, I
if we're
hope,
open
I
to
hope
it.
she listens to that, because that's a beautiful thing to say.
Well, she'll probably be writing something interesting in the comments
Yeah.
if she's watching this.
Yeah. And I actually believe that if we allow it to happen, and of course, you know, there might be some work we've got to do around our relationship to mother and all that, but
Yeah.
if we allow it to happen, I think women can really guide us in the right direction. I really do. In my last relationship, I used to get triggered if my partner, for example, showed disappointment or expressed a request or called me out. And sometimes I'd put my coaching hat on and I'd say things like, could you tone it down? Could you be kinder? Could you break it down and put it into a model for me? Control. I've just met someone. I'm really looking forward to diving into this relationship. And I hope I've cultivated enough resilience and regulation in my nervous system that if she fucking has a go at me, I know it's coming from a place of love. You know, because I really think that's the other side of love. You know, one side of love is I love you, I respect you, you're a great man, give me a hug, let's have sex. But the other side of love is, hey, you fucking said you were going to do that, you've not done it.
Yeah.
I don't like the way you're talking to me, what's going on? And yeah, I really think women can be a guide for us, actually, to really guide us into our heart.
And that thing about not reacting with defensiveness, you know, like, because the first reaction is, why are you saying that? What is it I meant to have done? And no, I don't agree, and thinking of a reason why it's not true, or an argument back, or whatever. That's the hardest thing. Isn't it, in a nutshell, really,
the hardest thing for men, right there.
That is, yeah.
Not being defensive.
It is.
That is the hardest thing in the
Well,
world.
as you were describing it, I was feeling a bit tense, you know.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is the hardest thing, because it's almost like we have to protect ourselves. We have to defend ourselves.
Or we flip it.
Yeah, or we flip it. When in actual fact, maybe this is valid. Maybe we need to hear this. Maybe we aren't pulling our weight. You know, maybe we need to do more to meet their needs, you know. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting one, that defensiveness.
And I remember my therapist saying to me over and over again, if you put your defences up and your body is really activating, it's probably true what she's saying.
Yeah, there's probably some wisdom in it. Yeah, but it's that staying calm in that moment when you feel attacked, you know, and actually just breathing and listening and staying present.
Yeah.
And not dissociating or not thinking immediately, not listening but thinking immediately of your comeback, you know. But I find that's an ongoing challenge, because it's almost like we're not taught that growing up.
No, we're not.
I wasn't. I think there's something about, you have to kind of develop these grown-up skills as a man to be in a successful relationship. And you're not taught that stuff at school. It doesn't come natural. It's not easy. It is natural to feel defensive. It is natural to feel attacked. So being present in your relationship in that way, I think, is something you have to work on. And yeah, I mean, if my wife's watching this, she'll just be laughing her head off, you know. But, we're all work in progress.
We are.
Yeah.
Let's talk about school, because I know that you've done some work in education. Regarding emotions, you know, it's such a shame that we live in a world that conditions us to believe that if we feel on a regular basis anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, and we don't feel gratitude, acceptance, love, bliss, happiness, playfulness, there's something wrong with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I often think, Warren, imagine, I think there's a movie, I can't remember, it's an animated movie that these characters play these emotions. But
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the movie, but what I'm trying to say is I often think, wouldn't it be amazing if in the school curriculum, over the course of a year, we had 10 modules, and each module was the wisdom of emotion. And there was a module on the wisdom of sadness, the wisdom of shame, the wisdom of anger, the wisdom of fear, the wisdom of playfulness, and so on, and how the world would be different.
Definitely.
Can we what's going on in the school systems around emotional intelligence? And
it's a big question.
You know,
well, I have been recently doing quite a bit of work in schools, so I've been going to Department for Education policy meetings and talking to them about, with a bunch of experts, you know, looking at what research needs to happen in education, what the focus should be, what constitutes success beyond academic attainment, you know. And it's these kind of questions that schools are not just churning out exam passing machines, are they?
Yeah.
They're developing young people, like they're developing the next generation of our society. So schools have got a huge amount of responsibility, but also a huge amount of opportunity. So I think the honest answer is I think it varies massively. School I was at this morning, huge attention on emotion, huge attention on emotional literacy, massive focus on relationships first. You know, the relationship is primary, and then everything else flows from that. Your mainstream schools will be, again, very massively, but you got to look at the incentives, you know, and the incentives are things like league tables and exam results,
of course,
and all those things.
And then where the funding comes from.
Right. So what you essentially have got is a system, I think, that's weighted towards educational attainment. But actually, when you look at what schools do and what they produce, they're developing young people and young brains. And actually, you know, what we want coming out the other end is not just young people who've been able to pass exams, but you want young people who've developed socially, emotionally, relationally, and they're actually full of self-belief, full of self-confidence, love themselves, have enough respect and kind of esteem to treat other people well, and feel like they've got potential, you know. And that's the thing. Like, there was a really important study by Richard Layard, he's a professor at London School of Economics. So they did a long-term follow-up study. So the short version is they followed a bunch of kids from going into primary school, all the way through primary school, into secondary school, all the way through secondary school, and then they followed them up later on in life when they were 34. So they followed them up the whole period, and they found the best predictor, and this study was called What Predicts a Successful Life, and they found that the best predictor of adult life success and satisfaction at age 34, across a whole range of measures, you know, how much money you've got, where you live, how you did at school, relationship status, have you been involved in crime, all these things, how happy do you feel, how satisfied are you, all these things were measured. And the best predictor of someone's sense of success and satisfaction at the age of 34 was their emotional well-being whilst they're at secondary school.
Wow.
And the worst predictor of life success and satisfaction at age 34, the worst one in the study, was educational attainment. So the balance is not quite right.
Yeah, of
No, I'm not
course.
saying educational attainment isn't useful, because I left school with bugger all qualifications and couldn't get a job.
Yeah.
So you need some qualifications,
Yeah.
but you also need to be socially and emotionally developed in appropriate context with your age and your stage in life. You know, you need to have those life skills, those social skills, and some of that is understanding and relating to emotion, your internal world,
and respecting your body as a child.
Yeah.
And the boundaries of your body and your yes and your no's.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
teaching women about it's okay to say no, and teaching men
Right.
about consent.
Yeah. What are healthy relationships? You know, because that's what you're going to be dealing with in life, is relationships. So how do you deal with relationships? What are your rights as a young person or as an adult? Your human rights, you know? What does an unhealthy relationship look like? What's healthy sex look like? What does unhealthy sex look like? All these things. That's what. So I think, some competence in academic terms, but actually we want young people to be rounded, confident, have self-belief, believe in their own potential, and also be able to have respectful relationships.
Yeah.
Because I think that, you know, the bloody social world we're in now with social media and the internet is they're being bombarded by idealistic or extreme examples of what relationships are, whether it's through influencers or celebrities, or whether it's through the free availability of pornography.
Yeah.
Like, it must be really hard to know what normal is.
Yeah.
You know,
I fear for young teenage boys that are on the Instagram. Can you imagine being a 13-year-old boy on Instagram or TikTok, and the algorithm recognises that you like young women that wink like that with a bikini on?
Yeah.
Before you know it, 4 months down the line, your feed's just full of young women who are seducing you, enticing you, and no wonder some of these young lads, and I was one of those young lads, but it wasn't as bad when I was a kid, that believes that women want it. You know, they want me, they want sex. Women, man,
it's a really difficult world to navigate in it. And then you've got, you know, all of these influences that they're following. It's all about their physical appearance as well. They're all jacked, you know. They're all, these days, it's a lot of it's around the weight loss drug, and they've got unrealistic expectations of what the body should look like.
Yeah,
they've got unrealistic expectations of relationships and sex and what it is to be successful. You know, so everything that they're noticing on the internet is extreme.
Yeah,
there's nothing average. You don't want to see a YouTube video about someone's average life.
Yeah, of course.
It's all about the success, the glamour, the glitz, the unrealistic attainment. You know, so. You know, if
we're going to be disappointed over and over and over and over again.
Self-esteem is going to be down there, isn't it? Or your expectations of relationships in the world or success in the world is going to be unrealistic. So yeah, I do feel that's a big burden for young people, isn't it?
100%. Warren, what's next for you in your career? You know, you've evolved from working in the NHS, a lot of mental health stuff, and sounds like you're doing a lot more exciting things now, and maybe you're having a greater impact. What's next for you, mate?
I've been lucky in the last 7 years. We've got involved in some really exciting stuff. You know, we've just finished a randomised controlled trial in 100 secondary schools, delivering trauma-informed interventions and support for staff. Hopefully improving outcomes for young people and improving experience for staff as well. So that's exciting. The results of that come out in, I think, January 2026. I'm currently working on a piece of work with the English Football League on a violence reduction project, which I can't say too much about right now, but that's
violence reduction project.
Yeah, really exciting piece of work, looking at replicating a project that was been really successful in Chicago called Safe Passage, where they basically put chaperones on routes to school with the intention of so chaperone like a youth worker in the morning and in the evening when school's finished, with the idea of reducing antisocial behaviour, bullying, youth violence. And the idea of that is that children feel safer going to school.
Which goes back to what you said about feeling safe in secondary school.
And then they go to school more often. And then when they're in school, they feel safe and they're not worried about leaving afterwards, and therefore they're doing better at school. So there's an idea, you know, one of the things is we applied for a grant to replicate that model in England. So we're just working that through at the moment. Hopefully it's going to get the green light from the funding committee. But that probably, if that goes ahead, that should occupy a lot of 2026. So we're working with healthcare organisations, social care, charities, non-governmental organisations, elite sport in some areas. So yeah, we work in a very diverse arena, but all, you know, the theme is using the science of stress, trauma and resilience to, you know, improve outcomes for service users and staff, and improve the resilience of the workforce. So we're not losing good people because they're getting burnt out and exhausted. We're kind of caring for them, looking after them, teaching them some skills to stay well, spot the early warning signs of stress-related harms, and, you know, our biggest asset is our workforce. And without that, we don't have an NHS, we don't have social care, we don't have a police force. You know, so we've got to get better at applying this knowledge about how we protect people from harmful forms of stress. So that's kind of the main focus of what we do.
Great.
I hope to finish my book. I've been working on a book for about 4 years. I think it's 5 years overdue, which is pretty.
What's
poor.
the book about?
It's about this work. It's about the application of trauma and adversity and resilience theory, science, and the applications that we found for that. So we've found ourselves solving roughly seven common problems in organisations, and that's formed the basis of our methodology. It's kind of our change methodology. So the book's really about a little bit autobiographical about my journey, how I got into this this profession, my experience getting there, and then it kind of turns to the theoretical side of things, and then goes into the practical application of this knowledge and this work that we've been doing to help organisations and services, have better outcomes for people ultimately.
Great.
So just need to shut myself off in a darker room and finish it off.
I hear my first book, the draft is finished, and I'm supposed to be going through every single chapter, but it's bringing a lot of stuff up, mate, and I'm procrastinating. It's like, whoa. Oof. And fear's knocking on the door, and I've just got to get through it. But it brings up a lot of stuff when you write a book, doesn't it?
It really does.
When you weave your story into it.
I also think it's quite therapeutic in some ways, I think when you're writing stuff, you're processing it, you're making sense of it, you're joining the dots. So I think it's a good thing to do, healthy thing to do, is to write about your experience.
Yeah, I've had someone helping me write mine.
Yeah.
We've met about 16 times for 2-hour sessions, and we've cried, we've laughed.
Brilliant.
She's got 2 sons, you see, and it's a book about male leadership. So it's been as therapeutic for her as it's been for me. And what about you as a bloke on your journey, Warren? You're a manager, you're a dad, you're a husband. What's next for you on your journey? Where's your next kind of area of evolution, I guess, growth?
God, that's a really tough question. Well, I've just finished I think I've just done 3 years of internal family systems therapy. I think it's roughly 3 years, and I feel like it's made a big difference to me and who I am and how I respond to life and relationships. And I think it's done me a lot of good, I think. So that's been a big investment in myself. But I'm kind of feeling like I've done that chapter and I need a break from it.
Was that therapy, or did you get certified in it?
Yeah, therapy. Yeah, it was me receiving the therapy.
Great.
I do have a plan that when I kind of retire from the day job and slow down a bit, then I will train in IFS. And get back to some clinical work. But I've been receiving it, so that's been a massive investment in time, and I feel like that's been a really powerful piece of work. So that's helped me.
Great.
What else as a man? I think I've got 2 teenage daughters and a wife, so it's about controlling that work-life balance and knowing that I'm a bit of a workaholic, having what we've just talked about, and trying to create enough space for them as well to kind of got to pay the bills, but equally got a family, so you've got to get that balance right. So that's a constant work in progress.
What about male friendship? Have you got male friendship around you? How important is that to you?
Really important. So one of my favourite studies is the Harvard Grant study, and they followed a lot of people for 90 years, like one group of people and then their offspring, and they found that the best predictor of life success and satisfaction, let me rephrase it, the best predictor of how long you live and how happy you are is the quality of your relationships in your 50s. That's what they found in this life course study. And that was more predictive than your IQ, how much money you've got, where you live, how you did at college, school, whatever, what you eat, etc. Genes. More powerful than all that stuff was, do I have satisfactory relationships in my life? And that was the best predictor of how long you would live and how happy you were. So in my 50s, I'm very conscious of that. I'm lucky. I've got 2 kind of friendship groups, really. I've got a bunch of people that I do karate with, many of whom I've been training with longer than I've known my wife, longer than my kids have been alive, like nearly 40 years. So those people are like another family, and I go to this karate club and I teach on a Saturday sometimes, and we have a great camaraderie, and we go for coffee and lunch after training on a Saturday, and so that for me is a really important group of people. And then when we do the black belt gradings once a year, we all get together with all the other clubs, and so we see hundreds of people that we've known over the years. So that's important. Then I've got a bunch of guys who go cycling with, and then there's my kind of old friends from Ince, you know, in Wigan. Like, still guy who lived around the corner from me, guy who lived up the road from me, guy who lived next door but one. Still my mates, you know, and we still go see gigs and still hang out. And you know, I call on the way back from Crouch on a Saturday. I call and see one of my mates, and then after my guitar lesson, I'll call and see another of my mates, and you know, that's really important. But and the other thing I think when you get to this stage in life is your physical health, isn't it? You know, looking after your physical body. Yeah. You know, and managing the aging process.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, when you get to your 50s. So for me, it's working on a bit of muscle mass. Yeah. And keeping flexible. Yeah. And then just trying to stave off those usual things that happen when you get a bit older. You know.
Yeah. Don't forget to take your missus dancing.
Right. We're going to London for we're going for a short trip to London in the next couple of days. So hopefully we'll get out for dinner. And
dancing is underrated.
Dancing
as a health component.
You've not seen me dancing.
No, but thanks for sharing the research on friends in your 50s. I'm really glad you shared that because it's almost as if this last year for me, I've had a really deep calling on the inside, like an intuitive calling to prioritize friendships. You know, so thanks for sharing that. But what I realise is it takes effort.
It really does.
So I'm really trying to take the lead on that, and it's working. You know, I'm really deepening a number of friendships right now and reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah. I think it's a really important message for people that are listening who might be of a kind of similar middle life. I think middle life is hard, isn't it? You know, your body's aging. You've got often elderly parents, responsibilities, kids. You start seeing friends die unexpectedly. Yeah. So I think middle age is a really hard time, and I think if you can maintain your friendships, your relationships, your connections with people, it kind of makes sense to me that that's going to be health giving and resilience building, you know. Because when stuff goes wrong, like I always just say when I was doing teaching, you know, what's the first thing you do if something great happens in your life? I want to tell someone, right? I want to talk to somebody about it. I want to tell a friend or family about it. Okay, what's the first thing you do when something awful happens in your life? Well, I think about who I want to tell, you know, because I need to tell someone. Right, okay, so whether it's something great happening in your life or it's something difficult happening in your life, our instinct, the way we're wired up is that we want to share it with somebody we trust. Yeah. We need it. We can't live on our own. And there's a reason why one of the worst things you can do to a human is put them in solitary confinement. Yeah. You know, that's one of the worst punishments there are in the prison system. Because we don't function in isolation. We need... Yeah. That's why we're the most successful species, is because we're pro-social. Yeah. Yeah. This is for another podcast, I once spent 10 days in complete darkness on my own. Wow. Yeah. I bet you hallucinated, didn't you? I didn't hallucinate because at the time I was practicing yoga and meditation with a school that taught us to detach. So you were from quite used to that. Whatever came up. Yeah, yeah. But if I did it again, I'd go straight into those hallucinations. Yeah. But anyway. Wow, that's quite an extreme. That's for another conversation. Yeah, maybe that's a conversation over a beer. I think that would be a good one, yeah. Warren, we could talk forever, and I think we should at some point do a second part. Brilliant, yeah. We're just scratching the surface here of some deeper stuff, and maybe next time we can go really deeper into the whole male psyche. Yeah. But thanks for your time, and where can viewers find out more about you and your business and your practice and what you do? Well, if you look on the internet and go to warrenlarkinassociates.co.uk, you can find a website which does need some work, but you'll get the basic gist. And there's a load of videos on there you can watch me speaking about this stuff. You can also look up my research papers if you've got nothing better to do. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Just type my name in, and same on X. You'll find me there. Talking about what I do. So great, wonderful. And you've got a podcast too, right? I just started it. I forgot to mention that. I just started a podcast inspired obviously by your work, Craig. It's called The Psychosocial. Great. See what I did there? It's not social just for psychos. It's about psychosocial issues, but it's kind of weaving in conversations with people who've got a particular experience or a story they want to tell or a particular expertise in this area, but the psychological and social aspect of this journey that we're on is really what it's all about. So the first guest was Ben Perks, who's the United Nations global advocate for preventing child abuse. So he's a guy, huge amounts of experience, and he's also just published a book called Trauma Proof. So he's getting another plug, blimey. I'm not on commission, but I probably should be for his book. But yeah, he was a great first guest.
Great.
So yeah, we've got some interesting people lined up.
Great. Well, I wish you well, mate, with all your endeavours, and
Thank you very much.
I look forward to the next time we meet.
I do too. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, and I hope you enjoyed this pod, and I'll see you on the next one.